You were in for an absolute treat. I had my dear friend Jay Maurice on with me. He is such a good entrepreneur. He's got a lot of fun, just a great personality, but a great leader, and he brings great ideas into how he's grown his music business to 9 locations, and it's so cool. I don't want to give anything else away about his story. Here's my dear friend Jay. Welcome to Market Mavericks. I'm Matthew Eford. Join me as I speak with leaders who are redefining industries in every corner of the market. From startups to established businesses, we'll uncover the strategies, challenges, and insights that drive success. Get ready to be inspired by the Mavericks who are shaping the future of business. Welcome everyone to Market Mavericks. I have my dear friend Jay with me. Jay and I met through the Institute of Entrepreneurship, my mastermind group that I'm a part of here in Atlanta. And I'm so excited to have Jay on. He is a rock star. I'm so excited for you to hear about him and his business. And I just love the way that he is living his life with a lot of fun and a lot of joy. So Jay, without further ado, those that don't know you, introduce yourself and what business you have and what's the role you play in it.
Hey, thanks for having me, Matthew. And you're a dear friend of mine as well. I really appreciate that. I have got a business called Lessons in Your Home. We teach music lessons in our students' houses. We travel to their homes and teach them where they live. We do this in 9 major metro areas throughout the United States. And I am the CEO of this organization, the chief everything officer,
Yeah, the
which
chief
I try
everything
to
officer.
which I try to fight against and be just the officer of what I really love to do most.
I love that. So what is it? What is it that you love to do most?
I love to assist in every one of the regions that we work in throughout the United States. We have what we call a regional director.
Okay.
They're owner managers. And so I love to assist these guys and gals to run their schools. And because within those schools, every one of the schools has 50 to 100 music teachers that work throughout those metro areas.
Wow.
And so they get to work with those teachers, which is what I used to do. And so they're teaching the teachers how to be the best teachers they can, how to really infect, the families that we work with about music. And so I like to assist them in doing that. So I support them, I mentor them, which I really, really love. And they also mentor me. Like they teach me just as much as I teach them. And
Sure.
we constantly, do this thing where we have an impact on people's lives. So it's the exponential effect of having um, these folks work with our teachers who work with our students and having that chance to have an impact on somebody's life.
I love that. What a cool concept, and I love your heart to mentor the leadership effectively, the leadership team, the franchisees. They're not franchisees, but the area directors that you have,
Yeah.
that you have an opportunity to invest in them. You can't invest in all hundreds of employees that you have, but you can invest in those 9 area directors to then be able to help them invest in their team and grow their portion of the business, which is really cool. So Jay, what were you doing before you started this?
I would say your typical musician that was trying to be a professional musician. I
Okay.
was playing professionally, gigs, recording my own music with my own band and playing in other people's bands. And
Is
Matthew,
any
I
of
live
that
in the
on is any of that on Spotify, or can we find that anywhere? Is that a deep dive that I can do after this and put up
We may
links
be.
in the show
It
notes?
sure is. I will. So currently, my music is listed on an old format called Reverb Nation.
Okay.
And I haven't taken the time to put it on iTunes or Spotify, but it's on my to-do list. And I will give you a link to Reverb Nation, my Reverb
Please.
Nation
Yeah,
page, and you
please.
could hear about, I don't know, somewhere between 10 and 20 of my songs.
That's fantastic. And did you write those, or did
I
you?
did.
Oh, cool.
I did. I've always
Yeah,
been
cool.
a songwriter. That's kind of how I started in music, and I've always been a songwriter. So
Wow.
everything that you'll hear on that page is songs written by me.
Very cool. So you're writing music, you're playing paid gigs, which is an amazing thing to do as a musician. And then how do
Right.
you transition into this idea of that you have teaching students, sending a teacher to the student's home?
I get a call from an old friend who convinces me to teach 2 piano lessons to a couple of young people that she knows, and she's assisting their family.
Okay.
And that family calls me about teaching their children piano. Not a piano teacher, not trained to be a piano teacher, never thought I would teach a piano lesson. Um, but I did it reluctantly, and I really enjoyed it. I
Cool.
enjoyed teaching young people. I think young people give you energy, and they just have so much discovery about them, and they're excited. You can get them excited, and I love kids. So I started teaching those guys, and within a couple of days, I started teaching the whole block. I taught, all the kids, all the families on that block. Word spread quickly,
Wow.
and so my business, I was a solopreneur for a while, and it definitely started out as a hustle, Matthew. It
Okay.
started out as a hustle for me. I didn't say I'm going to go into business. I said, oh, I'm going to hustle this. I'm going to do this side gig, this side hustle. I'm not going to have to wait tables anymore, which is what I
Sure.
was also doing being a gigging musician.
Okay.
Or I can work less in the restaurant and more in music and playing gigs. And I just I fell in love with teaching.
Wow. I love that. So how long did it take you to go from this is a side hustle to the epiphany of like, oh, this is something that can support my family and I can create the lifestyle that we want? Like how did you get from work waiting tables, playing paid gigs as they came in to where you're at now?
I think it took a couple of years when I look back on it.
Okay.
I was um, I was solopreneuring. I had stopped working in the restaurant because I had replaced my restaurant income with teaching income, and I was actually making more money teaching than I was in the restaurants. And there's this moment where I'm in a music store buying music for some of my students, and the owners of the music store knew that I was a local teacher. I had networked with them, and they knew who I was. And a lady walked in. Her name was Linda Lindahl, and she was asking them, "I want to start teaching piano lessons. I'm qualified, but I've never done it before. How can I start?" And I was in the store, and they said, "You know what? You need to talk to that guy over there. His
Wow.
name's Jay, and he teaches lessons." And Linda and I met, and I said, I had these 40 students that I was teaching, and I had a waiting list of about 40 more. And I said, Linda,
Wow.
what if you took some of the students that are on my waiting list and I would pay you to teach them? And she was thrilled to have that opportunity to start teaching. And I've only talked about piano so far, Matthew, but we teach everything. But that's how it started. So Linda started teaching with me. And I remember feeling such a sense of gratification that at first, I'm going to tell you, it was financial. I didn't realize I was meeting a goal, right? I thought this was again was increasing my hustle. I didn't decide
Sure.
there was not a business plan, there was not a business card, there was not a website, there was not a
Sure.
business phone number. And so I love the fact that Linda teaching for me paid for my Corolla.
Yeah. Cool. I
And
love
I
it.
loved it. And I said, this is great. And then when more people started calling, when 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 at first those people that were on my waiting list were because of me, but then when Linda was working, we also get people calling up about wanting to take lessons, and
Sure.
then other instruments, guitar, drums, violin. Then I started really feeling the impact of what we were creating, and I started realizing I already knew the potential to connect with people and resonate with people, with the music lessons that I was teaching. But then I started realizing how much of an impact we could have in the young people in our community and adults. I mean, we teach adults as well, but really, I mean, I love teaching adults, but I really love working with the young people and making that difference in their life. And I really started going, wow, we've got a great thing here, a great thing going on. And that's kind of when it became a business. I think it took a few years.
Wow. I love that. And so,
Yeah.
what did it look like when you got past Linda? When you started bringing on, when you started building infrastructure, what was the first person that you brought on that was not just a teacher? Does that make sense? Like, what was that first
Yeah.
kind of level when you're building out your leadership team infrastructure? What was that first hire? It may have been an internal promotion, but what was that role?
The role was a friend of mine in a different city. Um, we were talking, just kind of the friend you talk to once a month or once
Sure.
every couple of months. Said he was asking me about what was going on, and I was telling him about the success we were having. And he's like, "Man, I would love to do that over here." And we just started brainstorming on it. started brainstorming on it, and we decided to open up another city. Like to have him do what I was doing in a different part of the country.
Wow.
And that was the first person, because we have very few employees at my company, Lessons in Your Home. We really contract. We have a lot of independent contractors because it is a gig to the teachers who work here,
Sure.
and even the people needed the marketing teams, the SEO, um, you know, people who sent postcards back in the day. Everything was like a contract. So we've always had very few employees. Not that that's bad or a good thing, but more relationships with people that we worked with. Because we were Uber before Uber existed.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that was an
For
Uber
music, yeah,
concept. I
it's
didn't
great.
know it.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was. We just didn't know what that was, but that's what we were doing. We were giving service providers a way to do their service based on their time, their skill set, and what they could bring to the table. So I would say the first expansion was the first expansion when we started in a different city in Houston, Texas.
I love that. And so then, how has the business changed? Obviously, you're in nine
Mhm.
locations now. It's
Yeah.
vastly different than that first location. But what is kind of your infrastructure like? What support have you given to the local area developers, the local area managers? Why do they work with you and not just do this themselves?
Oh, I love that question. So I always envy guys like you who it seems from the outside looking in, it looks like the other business owners that I speak to, and I know this is a grass is greener thing, right?
Sure,
But it looks like smart people like you, which I don't consider myself part of that team. It looks like smart guys like you make a plan and then build that plan. And for me, it was oh crap, there's a need.
yeah,
We have to fill this need.
yeah,
So when we don't have enough time to lick envelopes closed, we have to buy the sponge. When we don't have enough time to stamp the envelopes, we have to find out and learn about bulk mail.
sure,
So a long time ago, and it was one of the biggest lessons I had, one of the biggest places we really changed and really grew was when we invested in technology. And I wish I would have done it. Hindsight's always 2020. I was probably, I don't know, 5, 10 years late to the game.
okay,
Not late that I was missing something, but late with what I could have accomplished had I
sure,
started it
yeah, yeah,
earlier.
sure,
So we made a big, with all the infrastructure going on, spreadsheets, paper, stamps, cutting our own advertising material,
wow,
making stuff. My parents are labeling postcards by hand, all these family members doing this crazy stuff. We I had a vision for if there was a tool that can do what we needed to do, so many of the things that we needed to do online uh, with technology, so many of the things that needed to happen when I scheduled a family as a music student.
sure,
So much of that was manual. Um, we automated all those things with a custom built application.
nice,
And I remember we researched applications for probably a year, maybe a year and a half, trying not to build our own. And then we just said, gosh, nobody's doing all the things that we want to do in an application. So we custom built a piece of software. And and I thought I was taking the biggest risk of my life because it was a lot of money. And I
sure,
had never custom built anything before. That changed the game.
I love
It
that.
changed the game because what took days took hours. And then on the second iteration of that took minutes. And then on the third iteration of that doesn't take any time whatsoever.
Wow. Okay, so then talk us through what does the iterations look like? So how long the first version 1.0, how long
Yeah.
did you run your headlong into that before you said, okay, we need to do a new iteration, we need to do version 2 and then
Yeah.
some version 3. What was that kind of process like?
The first developer I worked with, Jeff Cohen, super nice guy and super smart. And I'm so thankful to have worked with a couple of great people in technology because he said, Jay, we're going to build this. And after we get done, you're going to want to do more. It's called feature creature,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And so we built this tool, which was first a way to pay all of our teachers
Okay.
easier and faster than we had before because we determined that was our biggest pain point. We would take days and days to be able to constantly pay our staff. So much manpower was just going into paying our employees, our teachers.
Wow.
that and there was communication and lag and frustration because when your people are working for you, we have to treat them very importantly. And so pay is the first, like, hey, do I get paid on time? Am I getting
Sure.
paid correctly?
Sure.
So we built that, and almost instantaneously, we saw 10 things, paradigm shift, 10 more things that we could do differently. And there was, so I would say we started making modifications. Every application that we've built, and we've built, we've built probably three applications, like three iterations, three major changes to what we've done.
Okay.
But every one, the minute we built them, we knew we could do more. And I learned that whenever I paid to build those things, I was going to spend 3 times to 4 times to 10 times as much making them better
I
after I
love
had
that.
initially built them.
Yeah. That's great insight. But also, I love the fact that you picked your biggest pain point. Right, it's the thing that I'm least efficient at. So that's what technology should do. Is it should make us more efficient. It's not, hey, I'm going to go find this technology. It's going to make me. It's going to be super cumbersome to work with. It's going to be very difficult for my team. It's like, no, let's make this where it's more efficient, so we actually can do more with less resources.
And Matthew, you're on it. And I think that newer business owners who are investing in technology, I think one of the pitfalls that they could make is they don't know what they want their tool to do.
Yeah.
They know that they want a tool to do these things, but they really have to know how they want it to work, because that's what you just said. It should solve your pain point. If you can't say what your pain point is, I don't think you should be looking for the tool to fix it.
Yeah. Great
You have
point.
to describe it. You have to know what you want it to do. And so many times during these roads where we invested in technology, people have said, hey, aren't there great applications that can do that? And you know what? I'm sure there are somewhere. But I felt like I was mining for gold, because what technology can do easily for you shouldn't replace what creates you value if
I
it
love
takes
that.
a person to do that, right?
Yeah.
So when you want, like, we want to reach out to the family who schedules lessons with us and lets them know, and we want to let them know how their lessons are going. This is very easy to do technology wise. I don't think it should be done with technology.
Sure.
That's the value that I want to bring. I want to say, Matthew, we've been enjoying teaching your son, and here are some amazing things that are going on in his lessons that we've had a meeting about with your teacher. And this is what our goals are for him. I want to do that. I want a human to do that. I know that I could get it generated. I know that that could happen automatically, but I want to be there for it. So the technology hasn't done what I'm describing to you. It's just made my job to know that I have to do it with you at a certain time at a certain
Sure.
location. It's just made that easier. I don't
Yeah.
have to work to know that it's time to call you now. I just know that it's time to do that.
I love that. And I love that you're keeping the personal touch, right? I mean, the
Absolutely.
technology's out there. You can watch it on YouTube. You can learn how to play music on YouTube. Yeah, and
Yes.
you can do that, but having someone in your home, having the personal touch, it gives people that experience that they're not just a number, which is great.
Yes.
So you invest in your technology, you continue to do iterations of it. How did that impact your scale going from 2 locations up to 9 now?
Yeah. Um, well, it gave us the time and energy to do it. And it let us see it it took scaling. So what used to take, months or years can now, take weeks. And so it let us see clearer what it is that we really do. And then it helped the whole company, right? So it let us see every ability, with every iteration of being able to become more free, we got to become more creative. And
Sure.
at the heart of
It's a
this is
great
being
point.
creative. Teaching is about creativity. Being a business owner is about creativity. So, um, and musicians are all about being creative. So, when you have the opportunity to be creative, I think your energy level goes up. So you get to be more creative, which then gets to affect more people, and you get to really understand what your value is. I think we learn this. I think it changes. It changes over time. So we've gotten to know that the greatest value that we can supply has nothing to do with music.
I love
It
that.
has everything to do with having a relationship with a student and their family that has um, longevity, that we can talk to somebody 20 years after we taught them. And you can run into them at the local pizza place or the grocery store, or you get a phone call from them because 20 years from now, they want to sell their saxophone. And the first person they think of that could help them is you.
Yeah.
So you get a call. I mean, you'd love for them to still be playing saxophone, and if they are, great. But if they no longer want to play the sax and they want to sell their saxophone to a middle school student so that they can start, the first person they think about is you. It's a gift.
Yeah.
It's a win.
Yeah.
It's a win, and it happens. We've been at a school now for 27 years, and we have people that have called us after 20 years
Wow.
to 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 reconnect and to help them do something or to answer a question or to get a call about, can you, or, my old student is getting married. Do we have somebody that can play the
I
music at their
love that.
wedding as they
Yeah.
walk
Cool.
down the aisle? I mean, let's go.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a kind of an idea of a mistake being not investing in your technology early enough. We love to hear other people's mistakes. We talk about
Yeah.
that in the institute. We definitely talk about that here at Market Mavericks. What's a mistake that you've made over the life of your business, and what's something that you learned from it?
Ooh, I've got tons of mistakes. So I'll
As
say
we
that,
all do, as we all
yeah,
do. Give me
I'll
a
say
couple.
that
Give me
the
one or two.
I say that the mistake about not investing in technology sooner is just fear and not understanding profit and how it works. So that's a math problem. I remember when we first invested $50,000 on building a piece of software, and I remember saying, "Well, it's going to take me 18 months to pay it off." Like I was doing it
Sure.
like my own loan, right? Well, it probably took 28 days to realize that $50,000. I mean, that's how
Yeah.
expansive that
It's
was.
amazing.
So that was just a matter of learning the risk, and so I think people should take on risk at their own time. So that's not too much of a mistake for me. It's I wasn't ready to take that risk. People and listening to people. Those are that's a big mistake I've made. There were valuable people that came across my desk or came across my path that I didn't invest in, and I would love to have those times back to be able to reinvest in some of those people that could have done more. There's no reason we can't be in 30 cities throughout the United States. The people were there, and I just wasn't able to listen and see it. And then I let some good people get away because I was worried about costs and things like that.
Yeah.
We're trying to protect an asset. Um, Trusting the wrong people.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that
Tell
first
me more. We if anybody's ever hired somebody, they know this is a can of worms. So let's open that up. Tell us some more.
Yeah. So that person that helped me open up our first office in Houston, that friend, I remember sitting at their kitchen table in Houston, and we were hiring our initial batches of teachers. And I was having a meal with him and his wife, and I said, "Guys, here's my concern," because we were friends, right? And everything was on the table. Starting a business with a friend, have to be careful.
Sure.
I said, "How are you going to feel when we start making money here and you know that I'm making money because we're making money here?" This is the franchise model,
Sure.
right? They're
Yeah.
owner managers, right?
Yeah.
So how does that owner manager feel when they know, oh man, I'm making this money. This is great. But holy cow, the other side's making money as well. And that's a question I asked openly, like me and you are looking at one another right now, Matthew.
Sure.
And they said, oh my gosh, it'll be a blessing. If we're that successful and we ask ourselves that question, that'll be a blessing. And I said, I think it will too. That's the way I feel about it. It will be a blessing. And that didn't work out. They essentially stole a concept and also started doing what we do. But
Wow.
and so yeah, that's a loss and that's a burn. And it's also okay because our heart's in the right place and we do the right things, and
Yeah.
and then that's their path to walk. But yeah, so investing in people, um, I've always done first. Now this is probably a good thing and a bad thing.
Okay.
I've always stepped forward first and then understood the rules second, you
Okay.
know. And so now
So
if I
can
move
you give me an
forward,
example of that?
yeah,
What you mean by that?
like I would, if I bring on a partner now to open up, if I bring on an owner manager, and I call them partners because they are, because they
Yeah,
really, that owner part of the owner manager is real for me, and them. We sign our agreements now. We've had the right kind of legal premise to draw up the right
sure.
kind of agreement and understand that we do that first and foremost now. So that's a very simple fix, and there's nothing coarse or cold about that. It's just smart.
Yeah.
It's
It
just
just clearly
smart.
defines the relationship for everybody to know the parameters that you're working together.
Absolutely. So we don't put ourselves in places where we don't understand what we're getting into,
Yeah,
and then we have a defined kind of entity there. But in my opinion, sometimes the right thing can't happen before the wrong thing. The wrong thing has to happen sometimes for us to learn, um, especially when you're building especially when you're building kind of as that in that solopreneur mindset. And I
yeah.
was in that solopreneur mindset for too long. And that's
Okay,
another one of the mistakes you make,
okay.
thinking that you have to do it. It has to be your way. I want to be the dumbest guy in the room all the time. I
Yeah.
want to hang around smart guys like you.
No, that's why I hang out with you. So how have you shifted your mentality? What are some tangible ways that you say, is there a gut check that you ask yourself questions of, hey, am I tending back towards that solopreneur mindset? Or is it you have this litany of questions or resources that you kind of go to continue to have you thinking bigger and thinking about delegation and growing your team?
Yeah. Um, I try not to put the monkey on my back.
Okay.
I want to let other people solve things. And I've grown to know that other people will solve things not in the way that I solve them. And in letting them do so, that is one of the largest ways I can invest in a person by letting them make the mistake.
I love that.
Um, and I'm willing to put time into their mistakes. I'm willing to put some money into their mistakes because until you make the mistake, you won't be able to learn from it. Um, and Also, Matthew, being a part of the Institute, putting myself in places where around smart people who know how to do things or who are going through the same things that I'm going through to learn from them. Reading is important. I'm not a big reader. Although there's only a limited number of books behind me. And for a book
You've
to
got
make
them
it on
all.
this,
You've got them all in camera view, right?
that's it. Yeah, everything else is toys on either side. And I really try to only put books up here that I've read
Cool.
because um and so I'm a slow reader, but I want to get information. And that's what's cool about podcasts like yours and other podcasts and books and articles is I want to be fed information, not and then I want to discern that information about what it means to me.
Sure.
What's the message that it gets to me? So constantly learning is another way to avoid some of the biggest mistakes by just constantly learning and then not being afraid of mistakes. Like, what have we got to lose? God is good,
Amen.
and the mistakes that we make are for us. They don't
Yeah.
happen to us; they happen for us.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
so, we want to be in a place where things can happen for us. And so, even that mistake of trusting my friend without a contract and having one be one of my competitors now. And really, the saddest part of that is not having a friend.
Yeah.
I'll share the wealth. I want to have a friend. I mean, I
Yeah.
broke bread with this person. Like I love them and their kids, and I thought that we'd be friends forever. And that's the travesty. The travesty is not losing business. There's enough business for everybody. There's
Yeah.
enough to go around. Um, but that happened for me, not to me. I'm not a victim.
Yeah.
It happened for me.
I
I'm a
love that.
survivor. Yeah.
I love your mentality on that, your perspective, right? Because our perspective drives so much of the direction that we go. We were talking at our most recent roundtable with a member in our community in the institute, and he was sharing about a customer that had burned him, and we were kind of dissecting the issue, the problem, and it's to your point, you get around other people and you're looking at it and you're like, well, hey, and so he came up with one issue and said, "Hey, I have this issue. This customer's not paying me," and we spent 10 minutes talking through it, and we came up with 15 areas of like, "Oh, you didn't realize that you're missing point A through G, F, J,
Yeah.
that you've completely avoided this far in your business. But hey, you need to button these things up, and because this person's not paying you, thankfully it's just a small job. This is just an instance. But I love that you're pointing that out. You know, who you surround yourself with matters so much, and I love that you're doing that in your organization. So talk to us about, culture is a big topic. It gets tossed around a lot. Um, how are you engaging in? You have a limited number of internal team members, and then the rest of them are 1099 contract workers. How are you helping develop culture throughout your organization so that way you have as consistent as a product as you can in all 9 markets that you're in, and then the 21 or so that you're going to go to in the future?
Um, we have to walk the walk.
Okay.
And so I don't think anything should be, and it's the way that we work with people. So what I try to do is my best at working with our regional directors in the same way that I want them to work with their teachers.
Okay.
And it's the same way that we want our teachers to work with their families. So establishing a consistency where it's not do as I say, not as I do,
Oh yeah.
but do as I do. And then you have to kind of live that yourself. And I think it's easy to do the good stuff, but it's hard to do the hard stuff, like the spot where there's conflict or the spot where I may not be happy with what's going on. So learning how to speak with somebody when you're not happy about what's going on. And if you do this right, you'll always be to blame, right?
I love that.
Um, you'll always be to blame because culture is. You're right. For the last few years, all we've heard about is culture. And I've kind of shifted that word to environment,
Okay.
right? Environment. So like um if 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 we're gonna we have to the environment will create the behavior because it's all about behavior. When we get upset with other people, it's really about the behavior we're not happy about,
Yeah.
of what's going on. So if we're the owners and the leaders of these organizations, we create that behavior. We create the environment in which the behavior can exist.
Okay.
So don't turn your eyes away to what you don't like. You have to look the behavior and realize that that is a part of you. Even even though another person might be responsible for that, it's you have allowed it to happen.
Yeah.
So you need to change the environment and constantly be working on that environment. So that's what we're working on all the time. I think we've also made this a really big shift, which is it still feels weird to say this, Matthew, that our we don't so I'm going to say a bad word, which is not really a bad word, but in my company the word customer is a bad word. Okay,
Okay.
we've taught every one of our teachers, none of us use the word customer. And it's not really a bad word for everybody, but for us it is, because we work with families, and so we want to be a part of their family, and we know that um, we want them to be part of our family. So
Yeah.
everybody uses the word families, and for a long time, we always put the families first. And we shifted to put our teachers, who are also part of our families, first.
I love that.
So we put our teachers first. And for me, it's about putting the regional directors first. So
Okay.
that's the most important thing that I could do. I have 9 of them, and they have to be my first priority because their teachers have to be their first priority. And for those teachers, their families have to be their first priority. But our first priority is the people who work for us,
Yeah.
because we know if we're taking care of them, that's that environment. Then they're going to live in that environment where they take care of others.
I love that. Yeah. It's the Chick-fil-A model, right? I mean, it's my pleasure that
Yeah,
they turn that on its head and said, thank you's not bad, but we're going to say my pleasure. That's going to be the
right.
heartbeat at which we move through as an organization, is truly going to be our pleasure to serve people. It's exactly what you're saying. We are going to serve families, not customers. Are they
Right.
customers? Yeah, of course they are. They pay us. They're our client, but we're part of the family, and that clearly defines the feel of the organization and the interaction that you have. And then the second part that you said there, I love you distinguished. It is so often that a business will sacrifice their employees for customers.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's so easy to do, right? I mean, the customers pay you. Employees, you have to pay them. But as the leader, you miss the opportunity to invest in your team long term when you put them first, and when you try to as best you can to serve them first before your customer, because they're the ones that are serving your customer. Because it's what you said earlier. If you get beyond the solopreneur, if you're ever going to scale beyond yourself, someone else has to have a touch point with your customers that's not just you. So
Right.
you better be taking care of that person, or your customers will no longer be part of your customers. They will no longer be part of your family. They're gonna
Yeah.
find a different family to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had to tell you that that was a bad word because when our people watch this podcast, we have them listening to your podcast. When they watch this, if they heard me say that word, I mean, if it slipped out one time in the 6 months, and that workshop that we did was over, and the first call was from one of my regional directors, and
I
she,
love
she
it.
said, "What the heck are you using the word customer for?"
I love it.
And it's tricky because when we talk as business owners, that's the vocabulary, you
Sure.
know. And so if I'm talking to you guys a lot, or other people a lot, there's that word that people are using. But I think words help create that environment.
I
And I
love that.
learned that actually. You mentioned Chick-fil-A. I learned that in the restaurant business. I worked for a restaurant where we had guests, and they were persistent that we didn't have customers, that we had guests at our restaurant, and I never forgot that.
Yeah. It just again, it is what we said earlier. It's your perspective. What I tell our team is focus dictates direction. What we focus on determines where we go. And if we focus on treating them like customers, and it's not a knock on that word, but if it's just a purely transaction, you pay me, I give you, then that's the way we're going to treat that relationship. But if we treat them as something else, fill in the blank, you're able to create a longer term connection there. And so in your business and in my business, that longer term connection, if you want to get into the nuts and bolts of it, the ROI of that, that is a long term recurring revenue customer. The long term value of your customer goes through the roof. Those are the people that refer you. They're the ones that take your list that you had when we first started talking that was 40 people, and they make it 4,000 people, right? That's the
Correct.
way, that's the mentality of shifting around. I'm just going to chase a dollar, and instead of I'm going to build something that people want to be a part of.
Absolutely. Good
So
stuff, man.
so you read. You said you don't read a ton, but you do like to read. I like
Yeah.
to read a lot, but I also like Audible. I love podcasts. I love doing these interviews as well. If you could get a book in the hand of every entrepreneur, what is that book?
It's easy for me.
Okay.
It's really easy. It's Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Oh yeah.
I I don't know if have you read it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I In fact, that I may not have this because I have bought so many copies of Rich Dad Poor Dad and given them to the people I love. And I think Rich Dad Poor Dad is really less about business than other business books I've read,
Yeah.
but it's really easy to tell people what that's about. And the guiding principle is that it teaches us about money, right? I know you, Matthew. And so you and I, that money is not high on our highest, part of our value list.
Yeah.
It's wealth to me is about the people you love and the people who love you.
Yeah.
That's the wealth. That's the wealth I'm looking for
Yeah.
all the time. Money helps buy freedom, and money causes stress, which hurts the relationships with the people we love and the people who love us.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have a lot of it to be. You don't have to have a lot of money, but understanding money is, I think, the key. And a lot of times people who want to get into business, they think about the business, but they may be looking past what controls stress. And so it's an asset versus an
Yeah.
expense.
Yeah.
It's very simple. But until you learn it, it's different. And it's not hard to learn. And I remember reading that book for the very first time. And it's funny because my mom gave it to me. And you know how when you're a young guy, like your parents can give you stuff if you're a rotten kid like me. Your parents can give you stuff and you never, you just don't want to hear it from them because you know everything, right?
Yeah.
And my mom gave it to me. I think I was probably about 24 years old or 25. And for some reason, I read it. And I remember driving down the street after I read this book, and everything looked different. It's
I
like the
love that.
world was a different color.
Yeah.
Um, the grass, the sidewalk, the truck. Is your car an asset? Is a liability? Is that business? Is it really an asset or a liability? Is your home? Everything changed. And Robert Kiyosaki, who I've had the chance to meet a couple of times,
Oh,
and
nice.
he's
Yeah.
a
Cool.
fire. He's
Yeah.
a
Cool.
fiery guy. He is a fiery dude. And I the he explained it in such a way that it was very easy for me to read, being not a big reader,
Yeah.
that it just made absolute sense. So that's the first book. I give that book. That's the book I give away most of the time to people. If I have a conversation with you and I learn that you haven't read it, and our conversation touches on things that I feel are important in that, I send the book over. It's the
I
best
love that.
$10 you could spend.
Yeah, that was actually one of the books that helped the mind your own business book
Oh yeah,
chapter. When I got to that, I mean that's chapter 7 or 8 maybe. I've
yeah.
read it many times, and I have a copy in my truck. I've got a copy on the shelf. I've got the Audible book. I mean, I love that book,
Mm.
and I too refer that book out a lot. Um, but I can remember kind of the Lord working in my heart of just kind of like pushing me in that direction of getting out of corporate America and getting into business ownership. And I got to that chapter, and by the end of that chapter, I was like, I've got to do this.
Yep.
This is the direction I got to go. So I love that you made that recommendation. Definitely, everybody, if you've not read that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert, how do you say his last name? Robert Kiyosaki.
I think it's a Kiyosaki. I mean, like
Yeah,
that's the way that I
Kiyosaki. Yeah,
probably
yeah,
Americanized it
yeah,
and,
yeah,
and
yeah.
butchered it, but
So,
it's
but
Robert Kiyosaki.
if you search Rich Dad Poor Dad, they've got a whole litany of books.
Mm.
They've got a whole thing that they've expanded out into a lot of different areas. They take the concept into a lot of different ways. They've got a game. They've got a bunch of resources. So thank you for bringing that up, Jay. All right, 2 questions I love to close on, and we've taken too much of your time. I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate
Uh,
you
Having fun,
sharing
man.
and the wisdom that you shared with us here. Number one, this actually the impetus of this question came from our dear friend Chris Hanks, and it's this idea of as a business owner making a commitment rather than a goal. And he
Mm.
gave this great analogy that if you haven't heard that episode, go back and listen to it. It is when I go away to a business retreat or business weekend, I don't have the goal. I don't tell my wife, my goal is to stay committed to you this weekend. My goal is to stay faithful to you this weekend. I tell her I'm committed to staying faithful to you in this relationship. So, as a business owner, taking that perspective of a goal is something that, hey, it is kind of what it is, but a commitment of I'm striving for this, I'm going to do this. What is a commitment that you have within your organization?
Committed to helping as many music teachers and it's musicians as I can, because that's the exponential student touching the students.
Yeah,
Because um, the why of why I'm in business doesn't have to be it has nothing to do with business. It has to do with the way that music affected me.
I love that.
So I'm committed to developing teachers to let them know that what they have as a musician is valuable, because arts have a hard way of it's a hard way to be an artist in our society. To what they have inside them is valuable. It has value, and sharing that value is priceless, because it could take a person like me and help me to realize that I can achieve anything that I need to. But without music, that wasn't possible for me.
Sure.
And there's other me's out there who we have to touch. So I want to commit to the teachers that serve our organization, and all teachers. I mean, I don't care if it's somebody that teaches with us or not. I want to help them realize that they are making a difference.
I love that. So the last piece of advice, what would you give outside of what you've already shared
Mhm.
to a solopreneur, to a younger entrepreneur, or someone who's looking to scale their business? What piece
Yeah.
of advice would you give them?
I think there's different kinds of business owners, and some of them are analytical, and some are purposeful, and others are restricted by the ability to. I'm going to scratch all that and say that I want them to go for it. So
Okay.
no matter what kind of a person you are, go for it and don't put roadblocks in your way. So many times when you put something in your way, you give that something, whatever it is, the power.
Yeah.
I want to do this, but I don't know if I need the license for this or the thing for that. Get rid of that. Go do it. And then figure out how to make it right as you go. And I know that sometimes anti great advice, but I feel like some people need that advice. Do it.
Yeah.
Do it. You don't have to have the business card before you're in business. You don't have to have the business bank account before you accept a check, and um, you don't have to have the URL before you start a website. You can
Yeah.
get all that later. Do the website that you want to build. Getting a URL is easy. It may not, but don't put that first. Stop putting things first that stop you from moving forward.
I love that. Yeah, we just recently got another criticism that was about this idea around we spend too much time trying to pick the right decision and not enough time making the decision right. That it takes much less time making the decision right rather than trying to make the right decision. And it's this idea of just move forward, just do it, just move forward, take a step, take a leap. I love it. Well, Jay,
Well,
if
that
some,
guy's a genius.
yes, right, that he
I mean,
is.
because that sentence just, it was one sentence compared to my 15,
No, that's great.
struggling through it.
No, that's great. So, if somebody's interested, the two groups. Number one, if they're a music teacher or if they're looking for lessons, how do they get in touch with you? And then number two, if they're an area developer, if there's somebody who says, "Hey, I see the vision. I see Jay's vision. I love the culture that Jay's building. I want to be a part of that culture. I want to help launch a new area, a new city." How do they get in touch with you?
Lessonsinyourhome.net is the easiest way to do it. You can apply to be a teacher on our website, and you can call. You'll get a lot of different phone numbers depending on where you are throughout the country because our website's geolocated. So it'll
Sure.
give you the closest phone number. If you ask for Jay Maurice and say that you need to get in touch with Jay Maurice, they will. I've instructed everybody. I am not unreachable. If somebody asks for me, they need to get me. So call up, ask for Jay Maurice or Jay at lessonsinyourhome.net.
I
That's
love it.
my email address. I'm happy to get an email and tell me what tell me what you're thinking, and I'm going to be accessible to you.
I love it. Well, I appreciate you being open and willing to connect with the audience that way. Jay, brother, I love you. I appreciate you being a part of this. I'm thankful for your impact in my life, in my family's life, in my business, and I'm so excited to continue to see your success as you grow and as you reach more people and as you reach more people with the fun of music. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of Market Mavericks. We'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Market Mavericks. We hope you're walking away inspired and ready to take your own adventure to the next level. Don't forget to follow the show to keep up with our latest episodes. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe, share it with others who could benefit. And hey, if you know a market maverick who has a story that needs to be heard, please drop their name in the comments. We would love to bring their insights to the show. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and leading with purpose.